Hey team, how you going? Dave Neal from 8th Mile. I just want to challenge an idea. I work in an industry which is centered around personal development, leadership, professional development. Not surprisingly, the topic of values comes up. And I don't think we're representing the topic in the depth that it ought to be covered. And I'm going to give you an example. People talk about values and they run a lens or a filter and an assumption that they're always good. And they go, my values are my values and I stick to my values and, that's who I am. And, I go through life and, they largely don't change and these are my extant principles. And I'll give you an example. Some of them sound very, very altruistic. Honesty, loyalty, integrity. These are profound words, and some of them are centered at the very middle core of Western society and any society, in fact. But let's look at honesty. Have you ever met that person who just says it as it is? I just say it as it is, and if they can't deal with it, that's their problem. Without fail, there is a wake of destruction behind that human. What they fail to consider in the application of that value is there's often 10 different ways to explain the same truth, and some of those pathways are more resourceful than others. Some say loyalty. I'm always loyal. Okay. What if the person you're loyal to is doing the wrong thing? Are you going to back them? If someone goes genocidal, are you going to back them? If someone goes and starts hiding information or starts creating little cliques and deceptive groups and does insider trading, you're going to be loyal to that? Okay. Well, you go down with them, and you ought to go down with them because you've superimposed the value of loyalty into the equation and not necessarily morality. Okay? Even the very definitions of these terms mean vastly different things. If I talk about integrity, to one person it means what you do when no one's watching. I walk out of that room, I walk into someone else's room, and they go, no. Integrity is about being honest always. They're different things. I walk out of that room, I go into another room, and someone goes, do what you promise. And I walk out of that room and I go into someone who's a little bit more analytical, maybe from an engineering background, and they go, no, integrity is like structural integrity. It's like how strong and reliable you are as a person. They're vastly different things. I could put 4 people with their version of integrity in the room with no definitions about what it constitutes in terms of behaviours, and we end up with them at each other's throats. We need to slow down. We need to think about what these phrases mean. They're not just a regurgitation of a maxim that you just pop out onto a social media post and think that it's completely applicable. You might actually be creating the problem. Values are not intrinsically good in and of themselves. They just are. How we choose to apply them and the level of sophistication that makes them applicable is a totally different chat. Food for thought. Have an awesome Friday, awesome weekend. Cheers team, bye.